What is good, YouTube? They were doing a reaction video, and we're doing the darkest YouTube videos, part 7. Let's get it, man. Let's go. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that, and yeah. Ooh, child.
It's December 4th,
Why does it do that?
2003.
I'm
gonna go try to get them to stop doing that.
A police officer walking in a local park in Arlington, Virginia, is approached by a concerned family, claiming that someone in a nearby neighborhood had been shooting off a flare gun. The officer could hear it too, and following the sound, he eventually found himself at the home of 56-year-old James Yu.
Okay.
The man lived alone in his half of this duplex, and was described by neighbors as a recluse, known to exhibit unusual behavior.
What's a recluse?
Across his social media, he made posts claiming that he was the victim of fraud at the hands of all sorts of government agencies, as he had a deep distrust of the US government as well as law enforcement, and he believed that numerous people were attempting to kill him, like his ex-wife, the FBI, and even his neighbors. His posts seemed entirely nonsensical, and so did many of his actions. In the months prior, he had covered up all of his windows with garbage bags and aluminum foil, and he even wrapped his trees in toilet paper. And though these actions are entirely harmless, on this day, things were becoming far more troubling.
Why?
When police arrived at his home, Yu would be seen firing his flare gun out of his window and into the air, over and over again, and despite repeated attempts to get him to stop.
Arlington County Police! Stop shooting the flares!
What?
Mr. Yu!
He didn't let up, shooting 41 flares in the span of just 25 minutes.
I low-key like his
and he
last
did it all
name.
with no explanation.
Mr. Yu.
In fact, he didn't even say a single word. Understandably, police were eager to get Yu out of his home for questioning, as at this point it wasn't obvious whether or not he was a threat. And so for hours and hours they called out to him, first asking and then demanding that he exit his home.
James, Arlington Police, come to the front door with your hands up. Do it now. We have your building surrounded.
But still, there was no response. Growing impatient and worried that Yu might be planning something, the police would eventually bring in a specialized vehicle to bust down the door and spray the inside of the home with gas, all in an attempt to draw Yu outside.
James, stay away from your front door. Stay away from your front door, James.
And in response, Yu began firing once again. Only this time, he wasn't using flares.
What was you using, a gun?
And instead, he was now yielding an actual gun.
I ain't gonna lie, that
Thankfully,
don't sound
none
like
of these shots
gunshots
connected,
though.
but with the situation becoming increasingly dangerous, the officers
like a
decided to fall
ping pong
back,
ball.
as they carefully came up with a new plan for apprehending Yu, though whatever they had been planning would never come to fruition.
Huh?
Yeah.
See, I can't do this. I ain't gonna lie. See, with a situation like this, with me being a cop, look, I would not do this, bro. I ain't gonna lie, because I don't want to die. Bro, like, no. Dude, they got some, look, dirty cops. They got for y'all soldiers. I can't do this, bro. Oh! What that boy do? That boy had a nuke or something? What was that? Oh.
In a split second, the home was gone, as a massive explosion rang out from
Why?
inside the house, reducing the entire structure to rubble. Inside the house, Yu had stored 55 gallons of gasoline in his basement, which he saved for that moment to ignite with no warning and no explanation. Based on the footage, it's been theorized that Yu's actions were an attempt to lure police into his home so that he could then set off this explosion and take them all out along with his neighbors, as he genuinely believed that both parties were conspiring to kill him. Though somehow, when the smoke cleared, no civilians or police officers had so much as been injured. All that was found in the rubble was the remnants of a single body. Though for a moment, this wasn't the end of James Yu's story.
It wasn't?
Before
There's
that
more?
body could be identified, reports across social media began emerging showing that James Yu was somehow still alive.
How?
After the blast, comments were being made on what appeared to be Yu's YouTube channel, where he stated that this whole thing was a cover-up and that he wasn't even inside the home when the standoff started, which looking back, we never actually see him, and we also never hear his voice. Numerous posts pointing out this development would go viral and cause mass confusion about the story, which was only heightened when it was revealed that the body inside that building was in fact James Yu. Though in the end, it wasn't really as mysterious as some originally thought. As it turns out, the post showing these comments failed to realize that this wasn't actually Yu's account, and instead it had a completely different username, with the account likely having been created as nothing more than a hoax. Wow. To this day, though, there are some that still believe that this was all some sort of massive cover-up, but in reality, it just seems that this was the result of a man gripped by crippling paranoia and loneliness, with it all coming to a head in what has gone on to become one of YouTube's darkest videos.
Wow, so that was a warm-up? Wow. Yo, if that's the first one, I can only imagine what else is gonna be like. Nah, this is crazy. 7.
The internet is a dark and disturbing frontier. This year alone, countless people have fallen victim to high-profile data breaches, raising serious concern about personal information security. Ticketmaster experienced a breach compromising over 560 million of their customer records. But most alarming of all, the National Public Data announced that they too had suffered a breach, where a staggering 2.9 billion records were leaked, potentially impacting every single American. And these leaks included critical personal information, such as full names, addresses, dates of birth, phone numbers, and even social security numbers. If you haven't been taking your online security seriously, then it's time for a change. Though thankfully I feel secure number or crypto identity more.
Alright, let's get it. Chapter 2. I ain't gonna lie, this body music, it sounds creepy as know what. That was a baby.
There was really nothing else like it.
What is this?
This obscure 27,000 square foot structure allowed visitors to enter into what must have felt like another dimension. It was an exhibit called Dream Space, and was the creation of British artist Maurice Agus, a 74-year-old artistic visionary obsessed with the idea of creating large-scale surreal environments, and this was his magnum opus. The structure was inflatable, akin to a massive bounce house, and once inside, guests were confronted with a labyrinth of brightly colored walls and cells, twisting and turning into some sort of surreal maze that patrons were told to lose themselves in. This piece of art premiered back in 2004, and due to its inflatability, it was actually built to travel, making stops in major cities in the UK, before it was eventually set up at Riverside Park in Durham on the 22nd of June, 2006. The very next day, 68-year-old Elizabeth Collins would visit the area with her husband and her daughter, as well as her 14-year-old grandson. And spotting this unusual structure in the distance, Elizabeth's grandson insisted on checking it out, excitedly taking off his shoes and running inside. And while the rest of the group was more apprehensive about entering, Elizabeth eventually decided to accompany him, leaving her husband and daughter on the outside, though not before turning back to them and joking that she was going in to find peace and serenity. Outside, Elizabeth's husband and daughter sat at a nearby table and enjoyed a cup of tea whilst conversing about the events of the week, only for the man to turn his head and notice that Dream Space was slightly moving, to which he excitedly said, "Oh, it's a ride, it's a ride. I wish I had gone on it." The daughter then turned her head to see the structure as it began to rise up off the ground, to which she chillingly responded, "It's not a ride."
What is it? What is it? It's just me. I'm confused. What, it's turning over? It's turning over. Oh. Oh. Yeah, she's dead. Yeah, that thing blew away. God dang. Yeah. Wait, can't you survive that though?
In that moment, Dream Space had snapped from its moorings and was blown into the air by a massive gust of wind. Agus just so happened to be standing at the entrance as it began to shift, and noticing what was happening, he grabbed on as he desperately tried to hold down his entire life's work.
How?
Though clearly this was of no use, and after being lifted in the air, his grip failed, sending him falling back to the ground below where he lay staring up at his creation that was now flying 30 feet above him.
30 feet? Oh no! See, I ain't gonna lie. Just by the idea, I could have told you this probably was gonna happen. Not gonna lie. But did they? But did anybody lose their life?
Inside, there were as many as 30 people who were now being thrashed around this giant inflatable structure in a scene that I truly can't even imagine. The claustrophobia of it, the dizzying colors, the screams. It's genuinely one of the most horrific scenarios I've ever heard. The inflatable structure was airborne for well over a minute, folding into itself before finally crashing back down into a parking lot, leaving behind what was described by witnesses as a field of bodies. Worst of all, the majority of those in attendance were families with small children, with one 7-year-old girl recounting her experience, saying, "It was very scary and people were screaming. I saw a lady clinging on and then falling out, and then she was lying on her back with people around her.
Oh, wow.
I think she died." This lady was most likely 68-year-old Elizabeth Collins, who had been ejected from the structure when it was in the air, with her injuries being catastrophic and unsurvivable. Of all the others now sprawled throughout this field of grass, most were left injured but thankfully not in serious condition, though this wasn't the case for 38-year-old Claire Vermege, who had been inside during the accident with her 2 children, and despite her kids surviving, she was sadly not so lucky, with Claire and Elizabeth being the sole fatalities of the incident.
That sucks. See,
the video is
I'm not
terrifying.
good on that.
And though it's easy to say that this could have been so much worse, considering how many people were in dream space at the time, the consequences were still catastrophic, as it devastated 2 families and likely left many others at the scene traumatized for life, especially the young children. But how could this have happened? Well, that day was particularly warm, which likely caused the air inside the structure to expand.
My thing is, how strong was that wind? Hold on. How strong was that wind? God dang.
Which was then exacerbated by sudden strong gusts of wind, which eventually caused the structure to go airborne, as in the end, it just wasn't properly secured for the conditions. Soon after the incident, Maurice Agus was arrested for manslaughter, though he would ultimately only end up paying a small fine, as he vowed to never create a large work again. Just a few years later, in 2009, Maurice Agus would pass away, with his legacy forever being defined by this devastating footage.
Okay, that wasn't creepy. That was just like a tragic accident. I ain't gonna lie. Chapter 3. Let's get it. Yo, who's this face like in the screen? That's kind of creeping me out. I ain't gonna lie.
On October 2nd, 2006, police entered the home of 31-year-old Elaine Campione, where inside they found the woman speaking incoherently. Next to her was a VHS camera, depicting a series of disturbing events that had transpired within the home over the previous months and days. Okay. With the footage eventually finding its way onto YouTube.
How did that?
Hi, Serena.
Ooh, boy, that baby scared the piss out of me.
August 8th, 2006. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
The tape starts with Elaine pointing her new camera at her daughter Serena. Okay. It was her 3rd birthday, and to celebrate, Elaine had left a brand new bike in the living room.
What is it?
Days later, the footage continues, showing Serena once again as Elaine asks,
How does Mama love you?
This much.
Oh, I love you more than that. How much
what happened
does
to her?
Mama love you?
Well, yo, why I feel like something so sad is gonna happen to her, bro.
Shows her other daughter Sophia, who was just a baby, before turning the camera on herself and showing the kids how the device worked.
Hi. See how the camcorder works? Look.
Yeah, it's a virus.
Look. Hi. Is that Mommy? Hi.
Well, what happens? What happens?
So far, the footage seems like nothing more than your standard family home videotape, and appears completely wholesome. Though with the next recording, the tone begins to shift, and things start to become slightly concerning.
What you mean?
This is a deplorable, horrible, messy, filthy apartment that supposedly my 2 children and I live in, and it's just a horrible, horrible mess. Yeah. I think Diego Campione is totally in the wrong, and I hope he burns in hell for all his sins. The same as Leonardo.
As Elaine shows the camera her home, she begins joking about how they are living in deplorable conditions, before randomly calling out 2 men who she says she hopes burn in hell.
Why?
All while her
What did
children
they
are
do?
in the same room. She starts to grow more and more agitated.
All I wanted to do was take care of my 2 little girls and live happily ever after the 3 years of physical, emotional, and mental abuse that I endured tremendously by Leonardo Campione, and then the past year from Anna and Diego Campione, the mental and emotional abuse.
Outright saying that she was abused by a man named Leonard Campione, who happened to be her ex-husband and the father of these children. And she goes on from there, with each moment clearly making the kids more and more anxious.
And I want justice to my family for what they involved.
You see, I ain't gonna lie. You shouldn't be saying that in front of your kids. That's just me though, bro. I don't like people talk like that in front of kids, bro. Some people, bro, I really don't like that, bro. Like, why you telling somebody to bone in hell in front of your kid, bro? What would she pick? What would she picks that up? Go to school and tell somebody else you bone her hell. Like, yo, they don't ask what she got that from. It's gonna be you, like, bro. Like, don't do that, man. Like,
to us.
what is your
I
problem?
cried out for help. They should have charged him for the assaults he did to me.
Eventually causing Elaine to snap out of it and stop the camera.
And my poor 3-year-old, I did everything to protect. And what are you saying, Sophia? What do you want?
The video then skips forward once more, with this footage being taken just days before the police were called, showing Serena coloring on the
Who called the
floor
police?
as Elaine asks,
Who loves ya?
Mommy.
Who loves you the most? That much? Oh, I think I love you more than that.
The scene that unfolds next was recorded on that very same night,
Okay.
just hours later.
What was it?
Recording this because Leo there. Are you happy? Everything's gone. You wouldn't give peace. You wouldn't tell the truth. You didn't care about our babies. You didn't care about me. You cared about yourself. All you did was hurt us.
In the video, Elaine states that everything is gone, as she speaks
What
to
do you
Leo
mean?
directly, accusing him of having ruined their lives with his constant abuse.
You are truly the devil.
Okay. My thing is, what did he do to her that makes someone to do this, man? Like, honestly, I need to.
I hate you. 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 And I want you to know how much I hate you.
Disturbingly,
You don't gotta
the
do
children
that,
were
though.
nowhere to be seen in this
You
footage.
don't gotta do that,
with
though.
Elaine eventually addressing them by saying,
God believes me, and God's taking care of them now.
Okay.
He's protected by God, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank Him. Because there's no way I could have them with you. Nothing's good enough for you. It has to always be your way. Well, they're good. And you can have it your way. Your wife and your daughters are dead now.
Ho!
We're all in heaven.
No.
according to Elaine,
No.
not only were her children gone, but she was too.
No.
She stops the recording soon after. Despite saying this, the camera would actually start up one more time, where Elaine describes how she was still alive,
I'm sorry
despite
for that in
having
the
attempted
background,
to
y'all. I'm sorry, it's my
OD,
brother.
which prompted her to call the police. When officers arrived at the home, both Serena and Sophia were found laying in her mother's bed, holding hands and wrapped tightly in rosaries. Neither of them were alive.
Bro, no.
2 nights prior and directly before filming this message, Elaine had brought them both into the bathroom, as it was time for their nightly baths. And once in the tub, she told them to play a game, one where they would place their heads beneath the water and
my
blow out
God.
bubbles. When they did this, Elaine held their heads down, and she didn't let go until she was certain they were gone. This footage is some of the most disturbing that I've ever seen, as we get a glimpse into
Like,
Elaine's
are you
descent
serious,
into madness
bro?
in the moments directly before she
Are you
stole her
serious?
children's lives.
Bro, are you serious, man? Like, what will make you want to do that? Like, what did he do to you that much to make you want to take? What did the kid do? What did the kids do, man? Like, bro, you serious, man? You serious, gang? Man, that hurt my heart, bro. I ain't gonna lie, that hurt me, bro. I ain't gonna lie, bro. That hurt me.
But all of this leaves one obvious question. Why? Well, it was
Yes.
noted during her investigation that the abuse she alleged from her ex-husband Leo seemed to be very real and well documented over the years, leading to Leo not being able to see his children for over a year, with this causing the two to
Dang.
separate, which is when Elaine's mind began to deteriorate. She began believing that people were following her and were going to kill her, with this fear of people eventually shifting to a fear of aliens, as she claimed to have seen them on numerous occasions, believing they were following her. Because of this fear, she refused to let her children out of her sight, not even allowing her own
I ain't
parents
gonna
to
lie,
look
it's
after
not funny, but I think she might have CTE. Because, you know, she did say abuse. She did say abuse on other stuff. Yo, I ain't gonna lie. She might have CTE, bro. Because, you know, over the time, it's why it keeps getting hit in the head over and over again. She might have CTE. And she probably had it bad, and then she just did that. Because, you know, people with CTE, they crazy. She might have CTE, bro.
After them, causing her to become so attached to these children that she genuinely began to believe that they were all one entity, which made things incredibly concerning when she became suicidal and eventually attempted to take her own life. Despite Leo's more than troubled history, he had supposedly turned his life around in the years leading to this footage, and was eventually allowed to start visiting the children on a limited capacity. And seeing the children and seeing the way their mother was behaving, he began to grow incredibly concerned, and eventually attempted to gain full custody. And it was this bitter custody battle that seemed to be the ultimate factor that led to Elaine ending the lives of her children.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Just because you was gonna take the kids, you gonna take their life?
I could have them with you.
Like, bro.
Elaine Campione would be
And she
charged
was-
with 2 counts of murder and would eventually be sentenced to life in prison, with a possibility of parole after 25 years. Today, she's held in a minimum security prison, where she's free to leave once every weekend to attend church and other functions.
Bro, oh my God.
On April 18th, 2010, a 39-year-old man named Gavin Collins was released from the HMP Ranby prison in the UK. His freedom would last less than 24 hours, as the very next day he suffered a severe mental breakdown, the result of which was captured partially across several video recordings that later appeared on YouTube. This is the story of his rampage.
That crap's creepy as no what, boy.
It began at approximately 9 a.m. in the city of Nottinghamshire when Gavin left his home. As he walked down the sidewalk, those in the area reported him acting strangely, muttering to himself that he was Jesus and that he was invincible. Without warning, he then turned his attention to a random home, which he forcefully...
He said he was the Father? The Son of the Holy Ghost? No, he wasn't. No, he's not. No.
Stole a man's
Don't play
car
my God
keys
like
and
that.
took his vehicle,
Don't play
taking
my
off
God
with
like
no
that.
apparent destination. Inside the car, the owner just so happened to have 2 cameras, one being a
Thank
standard
God.
dash cam and the other facing inside the vehicle, giving us a look at
Jesus.
Gavin and his apparent mental state.
I ain't gonna lie, that boy got a smooth ball head. I'm sorry. I need to stop.
This is me. Jesus Christ! I'll show you how good a eyesight I've got. Hey, don't need this. Come on, let's go, bro. So, get rid of all that crap hairs. Let's go! Let's go!
Just at a glance, it's obvious that Gavin is completely unhinged. For some reason, he was utterly filled with rage, ripping off the rearview mirror and yelling obscenities and incomprehensible threats at no one in particular.
I'm enraged! I'm Jesus! I'm descendant of God! And you love me up! Watch this! You
And most concerning of all is the speed in which he's traveling, as he starts
Where
driving
is he
faster
going?
and faster, swerving in and out of cars as he passes through busy residential areas, as he reaches speeds that have been estimated to be anywhere from 85 miles an hour to well over 120.
watch this now! I'm getting stronger and stronger by the second!
But somehow, despite
No.
countless close calls, every time he avoids collision, at least for the time being. In an instant, Gavin smashes the vehicle into a brick home at full speed,
A brick home?
with the impact being devastating. And yet somehow, through the destruction, Gavin was not only still alive, but completely unharmed, and also completely unfazed. He pulled himself from the wreckage and immediately turned his attention to a woman driving nearby, and within moments he had forced his way into the vehicle, and was behind the wheel once again, continuing this deranged driving spree, until once again he crashed. And much like the initial collision, he
Where the cops
survived,
at?
walking away unscathed before turning his attention to another random home. In pursuit of stealing his third vehicle, he grabbed a nearby concrete slab and began to smash through the home's doors, bloodying his hand in the process, before eventually making entry. Inside were a mother and her 2 children, one of which was 5 years old, and the other wasn't even a year. Gavin approached the terrified family, yelling and demanding that the mother give up her car keys, telling her that he was Jesus and that, "Because I am Jesus, I will kill you if you don't give me the keys." And without hesitation, she did as he said. Gavin then went to each member of the family, and with his injured hand, he drew crosses on their forehead, out of his own blood, before taking off with his third stolen car.
That boy's he
Once again, Gavin was driving manically, though this time he was even more reckless, crashing into a brick wall and then a cop car, before setting his sights on a pedestrian. While speeding through a neighborhood, Gavin would see a man standing innocently near a bus stop, and for whatever reason, the sight of this man enraged him, causing Gavin to slam on the brakes and reverse the vehicle, stepping on the gas as hard as he could, and crashing directly into him, leaving him lying there with devastating injuries. Gavin quickly exited the vehicle and found the man lying motionless on the ground, prompting him to shout, "I've killed him. I've killed the devil." Minutes later, Gavin would crash yet another car into yet another home, though this time the police weren't far behind.
This way. I'll get him out. I'll get him out. Oh no! Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Do not move! Do not move! Get him up! Get him down!
Finally bringing his disturbed driving spree to an end. The man that Gavin had struck was 87-year-old Terry Radford, a retired teacher.
Why is it always some old posting, bro? Like, why is it always an old posting, bro? It's never like a young post. It's always some old posting, man. Man, may he rest in peace, man.
Whose injuries
I'm just
were
saying, though, why is it
catastrophic,
always some
with
old
the man
posting?
passing away soon after. According to his family, Terry was an incredible grandfather, father, and son. The footage is genuinely horrifying, but what's most shocking of all is the fact that any of this was even allowed to happen. As stated previously, this was Gavin's very first day out of prison, and based on the behavior he exhibited whilst in prison, he really should have never been released.
Yes, who?
Gavin was granted an early release in March of 2019 for charges based around burglary, but just as he was set to be freed, it was discovered that he had submitted an adulterated drug test, which caused his case to be re-examined and resulted in his release being postponed. In response, Gavin lost his mind. Later that month, he assaulted a prison guard before spraying him with an unknown liquid that contained bleach, before proceeding to set his cell on fire and attacking another officer with a piece of wood. Due to his actions, Gavin was placed into an isolated cell, where less than a week later he started yet another fire, and when an officer entered his cell to put it out, Gavin struck them in the head and pulled out a plastic knife, threatening to slash him, stating that it would be a thrill to kill him. Gavin's stay in prison clearly hadn't rehabilitated him. In fact, it seemed to have made him more violent than ever before, and more mentally disturbed. Though shockingly, despite all of these additional crimes, Colin's release would go on to be approved less than 2 weeks later, with Gavin being set free on April 18th.
Are you serious?
And within just 24 hours, Terry Radford would be brutally killed. Gavin was sentenced to 21 years in prison, and during his trial it was revealed that no drugs were found in his system. And instead, this all seemed to be the result of some sort of psychotic episode that just so happened to be captured on camera.
No. That's not something spiritual, bro. No. Something was possessing that man, bro.
In one of YouTube's darkest videos.
That's some spirits, bro. Nuh-uh, bro. Alright, man. If y'all enjoyed that, please let me know in the comments, man. Because that was something else, man. Like, comment, subscribe, man. Y'all stay safe. Y'all stay good. Y'all should pray it up too, man, because, With that being said, man, I'm out, man. Peace.